John Howard Carpenter was born on January 16, 1948, in Carthage, New York, the only child of Milton Jean and Howard Ralph Carpenter. His father, a music professor at Western Kentucky University, filled their house with classical records, jazz LPs, and reels of Elmer Bernstein scores. His mother, a soft-spoken librarian, filled it with stories. From an early age, young John toggled between two obsessions: cinema and music. He built 8mm monster movies in the basement using toy soldiers dipped in ketchup, and he learned to read music before he could properly diagram a sentence. Those twin passions, image and sound, would define a career that reshaped horror, science fiction, independent filmmaking, and decades later, comic books. When John was 5, the family moved to Bowling Green, Kentucky, where Howard joined the university faculty. The South in the 50s offered little to a boy transfixed by alien invasions and Gothic castles. Local theaters played drive-in double features, and John devoured them. He preferred the grit of Howard Hawks and the shocks of Val Lewton to family fare. At 13, he watched Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, emerging from the theater convinced that motion pictures could be as powerful as any symphony. He began cataloging tropes: how to sculpt tension with silence, how to reveal terror with a single shadow. In high school, he joined a 16mm film club, shot Western parodies, and mastered splicing tape while his classmates memorized football plays. In 1968, Carpenter enrolled at the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts, trading Kentucky's fields for Hollywood's backlots. USC pulsed with radical energy: student protests, new Hollywood auteurs, and professors who had cut their teeth on Hitchcock sets. Carpenter clicked instantly with classmates Dan O'Bannon and Nick Castle. Together, they directed a short called The Resurrection of Bronco Billy, a Western spoof that won the 1970 Student Academy Award for Best Short Subject. The accolade validated his instincts: story first, budget last, humor laced through horror, music stitched into narrative like a pulse. Carpenter left USC before finishing his degree, betting on raw experience over formal coursework. He expanded a student short into Dark Star, 1974, a quirky cosmic dramedy about bored astronauts that he co-wrote with O'Bannon. Made for $60,000, the film was equal parts satire and existential dread, featuring sentient beach ball aliens and an artificially intelligent bomb. Though modest in box office returns, it showcased Carpenter's flair for stretching pennies and bending genres, qualities that caught the eye of independent producers. Brisk and economical, Carpenter next directed Assault on Precinct 13, 1976, a siege thriller that fused Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo with urban grit. With a $100,000 budget, he delivered stark widescreen compositions, relentless pacing, and a synth score he composed himself on a borrowed ARP Pro soloist. European critics hailed it a masterpiece. American audiences took notice when it hit grindhouses. Carpenter had found the formula: an auteur who wrote, shot, scored, and directed under one name. In 1978, he crystallized that formula into pop culture history with Halloween. Shot in 20 days for $325,000, the slasher followed babysitter Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, stalked by masked killer Michael Myers on October 31st. Carpenter's steady camera, steely Steadicam tracking shots, and minimalist score turned suburban streets into labyrinths of dread. Halloween grossed $70 million worldwide, becoming the most profitable independent film of all time until Paranormal Activity. Critics were divided on its brutality, but audiences felt seized by its slow-burn terror. Carpenter, at 30, was crowned the new master of horror. Success granted him creative freedom. Over the next decade, he delivered cult classics at a dizzying pace. The Fog, 1980, swirled ghostly pirates into coastal Gothic. Escape from New York, 1981, imagined future Manhattan as a prison island navigated by eye-patched anti-hero Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell. The Thing, 1982, a remake of Hawks' The Thing from Another World, fused apocalyptic paranoia with groundbreaking practical effects. Though panned upon release, The Thing matured into critical darling status, its shape-shifting creature, and Ennio Morricone's heartbeat score influencing filmmakers from Guillermo del Toro to the Russo brothers. Carpenter's run continued with Christine, 1983, Starman, 1984, and Big Trouble in Little China, 1986, each balancing humor and menace while thumbing authority. Yet studio politics and box office disappointments chipped away at budgets. By the 90s, he returned to smaller projects, often financed abroad, including In the Mouth of Madness, a Lovecraftian meta-horror that questioned reality, Village of the Damned, and Escape from L.A. Critics labeled some uneven, but all bore Carpenter's fingerprints: anamorphic lenses, synth-driven scores, and protagonists at war with oppressive systems. Behind the camera, Carpenter cultivated another lifelong collaboration with producer and costume designer Sandy King. They met on Starman, married in 1990, and formed Storm King Productions, later expanding into Storm King Comics. Together, they channeled Carpenter's dark imagination into graphic storytelling, releasing series like Asylum, Tales for a Halloween Night, and Night Terrors. These books offered Carpenter a sandbox unconstrained by special effects budgets, letting him conjure cosmic horrors and dystopian futures on the printed page, while Sandy steered logistics. Their imprint nurtured young artists, championed diverse voices, and kept the Carpenter brand pulsing even as he stepped away from feature films. Carpenter's music, once a cost-saving necessity, evolved into an artistic hallmark. Fans devoured vinyl reissues of his soundtracks. Directors begged him to score their films. In 2015, he released his first standalone album, Lost Themes, followed by world tours with his son Cody Carpenter and godson Daniel Davies. On stage, Carpenter, white hair pulled back, clad in black, played synthesizers beneath projections of his films, reasserting himself not just as director, but as composer and performer. Though Hollywood beckoned with reboots and sequels, Carpenter preferred selective involvement. He served as executive producer and composer on Halloween, 2018, and its sequels, guiding director David Gordon Green while letting new voices reinterpret Michael Myers. He consulted on video games like FEAR 3, championed indie horror, and devoted mornings to basketball games and video gaming, particularly Fallout and Borderlands. In September 2025, Storm King Comics will release Night Terrors, Blood of the Taken Book 2, Next of Kin, continuing the saga of Theo, a reluctant vampire war vet turned private eye. Carpenter's name sits atop the cover, signaling his narrative DNA. Though Sandy King oversees the line, Carpenter's story sense shapes each arc. The series reflects his enduring themes: outsiders found family, supernatural forces encroaching on mundane worlds. Comics grant him immortality, panels stretching beyond the limits of aging budgets or studio trends. Carpenter's influence extends far beyond his own projects. Filmmakers like James Cameron cite Escape from New York as blueprint for future dystopias. Quentin Tarantino borrows his widescreen compositions. Modern horror auteurs like Jordan Peele study Halloween's negative space. Synthwave musicians sample his melodies, while fashion houses repurpose his minimalist posters. At conventions, fans, some born decades after Halloween, queue for hours to tell him how his films shaped their nights, their nightmares, their artistic passions. Yet for all the accolades, Carpenter remains reserved. He calls himself a film worker, not a visionary. He claims he directs for one reason: "I love to sit in the back of a theater and hear an audience react." His humor is dry, his disdain for Hollywood ego palpable, his favorite indulgence a Lakers game and a cigarette. Age has slowed his output, but not his curiosity. He still discusses virtual reality's potential for first-person horror and dreams of adapting Dead Space. Carpenter's legacy sits on three pillars: narrative economy, sonic identity, and uncompromising independence. He proved a filmmaker could compose scores, edit scripts, and steer marketing without sacrificing vision. He championed strong female leads, Laurie Strode, Stevie Wayne, long before studio mandates. He democratized terror, showing that fear lives in blank walls and distant footfalls more than in gore. And he embraced new mediums, from vinyl to comics, affirming that storytelling evolves. As Next of Kin hits shelves this September, Fans will once again feel Carpenter's presence, his imagination flickering like a projector lamp in the dark. At 77, he may never again brave Canadian snowfields or desert backlots for a 4 a.m. shot, but his stories march on. Each new comic, soundtrack, or Halloween revival is a reminder that his career is less a closed book than a living organism, mutating, multiplying, feeding on dreams and nightmares. In the twilight of his career, John Carpenter embodies the essence of the outsider heroes he created: steadfast, resourceful, unwilling to conform. He once sang, "You've got to escape," and then spent a lifetime building the doors for audiences to walk through, into shadowy streets, haunted research stations, dystopian prisons, and now the ink-black gutters of graphic novels. If storytelling is indeed a form of hypnotism, Carpenter remains among its most skilled practitioners. He plays the same three chords: dread, defiance, and DIY spirit. Yet somehow, 50 years later, the tune still feels dangerous, still feels new.